So we've talked about the problems. We've talked about you're running for president and you have some ideas. What is your vision for America?
Wow. So the bigger vision for America is absolutely revival. A revival economically and a revival at the heart level spiritually on who we are. You know, we have to recognize as a nation, first of all, we've left God. Kevin, you know, in Scripture in Ezekiel, it says that there are judgments that come on a land when they've sinned and when they've left God. It's interesting, there's 4 of them. It talks about there being a plague, being a famine, being war, or being wild animals running through your land. Mentions 4 specifically. Yeah. When I read that, I'm like, 3 of those are going on right now. Oh no, we've had a plague. First time in my lifetime we've had a plague impact us. Did we look up to God? No, we passed that moment by. We're in a war. If this was just a judgment on Ukraine, why are we paying for it? We're paying for it now. I don't know about the wild animals. I've had a run of squirrels and raccoons before, but at the end of the day, we do have famine, which is hunger. 11% of America is food deficient. We've seen the drought all throughout Western America. So I think God's trying to get our attention. So what does it look like? A revival look like? I think it's when we start looking up and then asking God, how would you do it? Jesus gave us the words on how to solve economic crisis. He pays attention to things that many times we overlook. The hurting, the poor, the least in society, the immigrant, the youth of today. And so one of the big key things besides solving the budget, besides fixing healthcare, is do this. How do we start a job movement in urban America? The Republican Party is nowhere near urban America. We've lost 88% of the vote. We lost 46 of the top 50 cities. If we want to win America back, we only won 46% of the vote nationwide in the last 2 elections. We have to have a solution that's an alternative to socialism for urban America, and I have one. It's called job training at the high school level, vocational skills that we had back when we were growing up. We were #1 in education. We can get that back through a volunteer movement of college students teaching 3rd graders on how to read again. We've fallen so far behind. Only 1 out of 6 kids are reading at the 8th grade reading level. So we have to start an education movement and a job movement, getting people ready for out of high school to be a success.
Well, you know, I think about it. When we talk about the urban, you're right. The largest city in Texas that has voted Republican is Fort Worth, but most of the big, large cities, Dallas, Houston, El Paso, San Antonio, are solidly Democratic, and they're led in large part by socialists, mayor, and they're in large part failing. Dallas has a huge budget problem, a huge debt problem. And you look at Detroit, you look at Philadelphia, you look at Chicago, you look at San Francisco. Maybe the most beautiful city in America is now one of the ugliest cities in America with feces on the street and everything else. So that's a failing. But the Democrats don't want to talk about it because they're the ones that are failing there. And the Republicans don't want to talk about it because they don't see that as their territory. And so nobody's talking about these cities. And yet the World Economic Forum wants to push all of us in these major, large 15-minute cities to where you can't travel very far from your home. It's all about treating us not as individuals, but treating us as property or cattle.
Well, this is the biggest opportunity for the Republican Party right now. I mean, we're in the days of, to me, Jimmy Carter. You know, Joe Biden is our generation's Jimmy Carter. I mean, we're not right now. We're in high time inflation. We're in stagnant growth. We have a lot of economists projecting a recession in this next year. Difficult moments. But what's the opportunity? Opportunity is for us to dive right into urban America, not ignore it, because we did lose Fort Worth in this last election to Joe Biden. We can actually do this. We can do this. But how are we going to do it? I'm calling it love your neighbor. I had a bunch of college students over, recently, and I said, listen, you hate politics already. And by the way, 70% of college students voted Democrat in the last election. Wow. I said, you hate politics already. Join me in a movement to love your neighbor. What does that mean? Let's volunteer. Think of the Peace Corps in the 60s and 70s. Let's start that movement with college students. They're spending 5 hours a day on their phone. Let's spend 5 hours a week volunteering in the life of a 3rd grader, teaching them how to read, write, and do math. Let's excel again. Let's start this work movement again. We can get people off social welfare systems if we give them a living wage job. This is the movement, I believe, for the Republican Party, because the electorate has changed. Right now, the Republicans' message hasn't changed. We've been the same for 40 years, but we've not changed to the changing electorate, which means we don't have to change the core who we are, but we have to address the needs in a different way. And that's what I'm calling us to do. Don't ignore urban America. They're the fastest growing segments of our society. Don't ignore college students. There's going to be 70 million people under 30 vote for this next election, millennials and Gen Zers. Let's embrace them. Let's give them a message that speaks to their heart, gets them volunteering, gets them serving, and we can change America.